Good evening, and welcome to the May 26th meeting of the Burbank Infrastructure Oversight Board, and welcome back to Chambers. Good to see you all. Can we please stand for the flag salute? Thank you. And now could we please get a roll call?
Armin Avazian,
Present.
Walter Brennan Jr. Here. Maria Coronado,
Here.
Greg Jackson,
Here.
Tamala Takahashi,
Here.
and Jeff Vanderbort.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any announcement? Yes, did we miss Michelle?
I'm so sorry, Miss Vanessa Rochelle.
Equally happy to be here.
Do we have any announcements this evening? Mr. Berkman, Mr. Hahn?
Yes, Honorable Chair, board members, great to see you, great to be here. Wanted to let you know and appreciate the great meeting that we had, the joint meeting with the Transportation Commission last month. Now, as you know, staff was tasked by the City Council to report back to them after the joint meeting occurred and we had your input. And both the board and the commission moved to seek clarification on which body would have input on traffic safety matters. And that is all good, and that is what we will do. Mr. Kriske, Assistant Community Development Director, and I will get back to council. We will keep you apprised of when that date is. So that is my first announcement. And I think I should let you know, if you did not see yourself, Tuesday night, the overall city budget, which includes rates and capital program budgets, was approved by council unanimously. It's a almost $800 million total budget, and we are balanced and in good shape. And I personally appreciate all your help in putting that together for their approval. And I think one thing I should note, they were in receipt and did discuss in the study session the board's request for, I guess I'd say, flexibility to say potentially increase the minimum Measure P commitment during the budget. And they talked about it and decided that I'll sum it up without getting into a discussion, the flexibility is inherent in the process, so they're going to keep the minimum at that $4.7 million Measure P capital program, but always considering the amount of additional monies that come in during the future years. So they appreciated that, and I appreciated it, so thank you very much. And that's it, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for those announcements. Any other announcements tonight? Ms. Coronado?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm not sure if it's an announcement. It's more like a request, but I think this is the best place in the agenda for it to fall. I live on Fairmount Road, and the pavement process came through, and they sealed the cracks on the road. And I wanted to make a quick comment that it was seamless, that they put up signs, they put flyers on our doors, told us we had to stay off the streets for a certain amount of time. Needless to say, I went to work, came home, everything was complete, I could drive on the road, and I just would like to make a request to see the process in action if it's possible sometime.
Sorry. Through the chair, clarification, what exactly is the request?
To visit a road that they are sealing the cracks on and kind of watch the process from beginning to end, if possible.
Sure, I think that's fine. We could arrange that. For any of you, that doesn't have to be a request through a board meeting. We can accommodate that with proper safety protocols. I mean, we have to think about being in the public right away in an active construction site, but to be sure from the perhaps public right away of sidewalk, that could be done.
Absolutely, and I have a hard hat and safety glasses. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
And yes, I just wanted to say I was very impressed by the process. We're doing great work in the city of Burbank here. Thank
Great.
you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any more announcements? Great. Okay, moving on then to public comment. Do we have any public comments tonight?
We have no callers at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, let's move into the minutes. So, as a reminder, last meeting we had made some requests to update the minutes. So, we have 2 sets of minutes to review and approve tonight. We have the April 28th and March 24th minutes. For clarification, do we need to approve them separately, or can we approve them together, or if there's no conversation? Or
Madam Chair, there are 2 separate approval of minutes, one for April 28th and one for March 24th, which need to be considered separately.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, let's start with the April 28th minutes, which was our last meeting. This was the joint meeting with the Transportation Commission. Do we have any comments before we make a motion to approve? Mr. Jackson?
Just one comment. I left the meeting after an hour. I had other commitments, so I'll be abstaining on this action since I didn't stay through the whole meeting.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Yes, Ms. Coronado?
I left the meeting before it ended as well, so I'll abstain as well.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Vazzi?
Same here, I was absent, so I will abstain.
Okay. We still have a quorum to vote, though, I believe, right? Yeah, okay. Any other comments? Okay, then would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, I'll move them for adoption.
Okay, great. And second? Okay.
I motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, so let's take the vote.
Okay. Armin Avazian is abstaining. Walter Brennan Jr. Maria Coronado abstaining. Greg Jackson abstaining. Vanessa Rochelle?
Approved.
Approved? Okay. Tamala Takahashi?
Yes.
Approved. And Jeff Vanderborn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go through the same process for the March 24th minutes, and these are the ones that we had asked for additional comments or different additional changes. So is there any discussion about these minutes? Yes, Mr. Jackson.
I'd like to thank staff. They're better. They don't, however, capture really the essence of my concerns about what we were acting on. I mean, well, my concerns were twofold. One, the escalating cost of some of the projects that were before us and the lack of explanation as to why they had increased dramatically. And the other, my contention, which I've said numerous times, is that I don't think a number of the projects qualified for the use of Prop P funds because they weren't listed on the voluminous list of unfunded needed projects. But, you know, as was pointed out by our director, the issue's moot. The council has approved it, so we can battle this next year if I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Am I hearing you correctly that you do not want that to be added to the minutes?
I don't care.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, then let's go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve?
In a second.
I'll second.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's take a vote.
Armin Avazian? Walter Brennan Jr.?
Approved.
Maria Coronado?
Approved.
Greg Jackson?
Approve.
Vanessa Rochelle?
Approved.
And Tamala Takahashi?
Yes.
And Jeff Vanderborn? Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to reflect Mr. Jackson's comments about thanking staff for going back and revising them. Appreciate that. It was a lot of work we asked you to do, so we appreciate you doing that and updating them for us. Thank you. All right, so let's move on to our agenda for tonight and the reports to the board. This is our exciting CIP updates that we get every quarter. So let's move to hear from Mr. Hahn, I guess, is going to present tonight. All right, our third quarter
Yes.
CIP report for 21-22.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, board members. Capital Projects Program Manager, Mr. Hoon Han, will present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Berkman. Good evening, Chair Takahashi and members of the board. Oh, can you hear me now? Oh, thank you. Good evening, Chair Takahashi and members of the board. My name is Hoon Han, Capital Projects Program Manager. Tonight I have before you the third quarter project update for the CIP program. The purpose of the quarterly update is to inform the IOB on funded project updates. For the purpose of our presentation tonight, the projects are broken down into three categories. You have the municipal facility CIP projects, and parks recreation projects, and traffic transportation pedestrian access projects. Each category are divided into two sections. The first section is the projects that were approved in fiscal year 21-22 and also carryover projects. Many of these projects were either in the final stages of design or the design had been completed. The project manager for Maxim Park Restroom Building, Downtown Metrolink Metro Station Elevator, Orange Grove Parking Structure, and CYSB is working with purchasing to finalize the bid document to go out to bid. As far as the parks projects, most of the parks and recreation project delivery method is either design build project or a cooperative agreement projects. It's a method of project delivery as far as the contract agreement with the contractor. Parks project manager are working with purchasing to finalize the agreements and start construction for many of these projects. The Bell Golf Course netting replacement and bunker project is in construction at this time and is scheduled for completion by July of 2022. And the Bell irrigation project, which is also in construction, is to be completed by August of 2022. And the community garden is scheduled for a soft opening of next week on May 30th. And Brace Canyon Park Ballpark has started a public engagement process with an online survey, and we'll have follow-up meetings with the community. For the traffic, transportation, pedestrian access projects, the fiscal year 21-22 annual residential paving project, the project that Board Member Coronado was talking about, they actually started construction, and the project is scheduled to be completed by November of 2022. The sidewalk project, the 21-22 sidewalk rehab projects, the bids actually opened this past Tuesday, and with council approval and the contract execution, the project should probably start construction in the next 2 to 3 months. And then we have the arterial paving rehab project. The project manager right now is working with the purchasing division to complete the bid document and go out for bid. And for Glen Oaks Boulevard project, due to the long lead time for the purchase of the traffic post, the procurement process for the material started in January, and the project manager is actually working with purchasing right now to get the rest of the bid document out for bid. The following projects that were shared, the following project that I'm about to share with you is projects that were shared with by Mr. Berkman with the council for the budget presentation, minus the first quarter projects that were completed in the first quarter, so I took those out. We have the Isaiah Miller and Gross Playground renovation project. The project construction, or the project cost, is roughly about $940,000, and the project was completed in April of 2022. And that was a before picture and after picture of Isaiah. And then we have the Miller before, and then we also have the after picture, and you can see a huge improvement in the playground facility. And this is at Gross Park, and before and after, and it's really huge improvements on that. And then we have the DeBell driving range improvement. The construction cost of about $275,000, and it was completed in January of 2022. And you have the before and in construction pictures, as you can see. And the improvement, the difference from the before and after is tremendous, as you can see. It's really, really appealing. And I think I want to go there and hit some balls now. And you can see the after. And this is the Maxim Lighting Modernization project. And the project cost was about $144,000, and it was completed in October of 2021. And this is the after project. You can see how well the lights actually illuminate the dark there at night. And then we have the ball field lighting at Isaiah and Valley Park at about $600,000, and the project was completed in February of 2022. And you can see the Isaiah Park lit up at night, and the Valley Park field lit up. And I play softball at another city, and definitely I don't get that kind of lighting there, so huge improvement. The annual facility small cap improvement projects, and this is you have a Tuttle 4 electric panel replacement at $82,000, which was completed in March of 2022. And you can see the big improvement from just the shed looking to a more of a modern look. And then you have the CSB TMC data center HVAC replacement at about $200,000, which was completed in December of 2021. And then you have the underground storage tank replacement at CYSB, and the project cost was about $30,000, and it was completed in April of 2022. And here are some few constructions and the projects in construction that I wanted to highlight. We have the DeBell Golf Course netting replacement and bunker improvement project. That's at about $319,000, and it is scheduled to be completed by July of 2022. And you can see the netting, that portion that was completed, the before and after, and you could definitely will improve the safety of drivers driving along that street there. And then you have the DeBell irrigation improvement at about $1.8 million, and it's scheduled to be completed by August of 2022. And then the purple pipes you see there, those are the recycled water. So it's not potable water that they're using. So all purple pipes or purple like meter boxes, if you ever see that, that indicates that it's recycled water. And then we have the annual 21-22 annual residential paving project that's currently in construction, and the construction cost is roughly at $7.8 million, and it is scheduled to be completed by November of 2022. And as you can see, we have the Measure P sign up so that the resident could see how Measure P dollars are being spent on projects. And that concludes my presentation, and staff and I are available to answer any questions that you might have regarding the presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hahn, for that presentation. Do any of my colleagues have any comments or questions for Mr. Hahn? Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, nice presentation, Mr. Hahn.
Thank
I
you.
just have one question. On the third slide, or whatever it's called, third visual, which is labeled Municipal Facilities CIP Projects. This is the third page of our,
Yes.
okay. Under prior year approval, the first item is annual roof repair and replacement to the tune of $913,000. Where did that money come from?
The funding source for
Yes.
that? This is, I believe there's some Measure P funds and also Fund 370, but I don't know the details. I would have to get back to you on the breakdown of the funding source for
Okay,
that.
why I ask is I looked back a year ago, and I found no mention of any Prop P funds being used for an annual roof repair, which is, I'm sure, needed for roof repair. But that then brings me to question, why did we spend $750,000 of Prop P funds on the police fire building for roof replacement?
Yeah,
If it hasn't been done before, they must have been able, they being, the gentleman and lady that sit up here, been able to find other sources of funds rather than raiding the Prop P fund.
yeah, as far, so I might have misspoke. I'm not sure exactly the funding source for it, the breakdown. It is this funding is actually, or this project is it's an older project.
Right.
And then it could have actually, I think it started prior to the Measure P fund. So actually,
And may I, before Assistant Director Myron Sarkeesian comes up, he oversees Fleet and Building Program. The one key point that I'd like to make for the board and the public watching, annual roof repair, replacement, annual anything, unless it's identified like we do now with our sidewalks and the residential paving and the arterial paving, when I came, it was too broad a context. We can't follow exactly what's being done and the financing that's being done. So that's a significant, a small but significant improvement that we've done for transparency to make sure projects actually have a real scope and budget and schedule defined as opposed to annual this or annual that. So it's a fair point. I'll let Mr. Sarkeesian elaborate a little bit, but it's probably a multi-year project that we now, for example, don't have, we don't put like the PD fire headquarters roofing in that annual. We call it out specifically. We have a scope. We have defined budgets and budget sources. So it's a great question. We appreciate it. Myron?
Good evening, Board, Chair. So this money was grandfathered in before Prop P came along. We had this money designated for specific buildings to re-roof, including Olive, Jocelyn Adult Center, and some other facilities. So that's where this money comes from. We used to have that annual program, but the police fire building is a separate project, and so we asked for the money for that. And this money wouldn't be used for police fire because it's already designated.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Yeah, Mr. Vanderpoort?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I just have a couple of quick questions just to understand the status of a couple of projects, more specifically under the municipal facilities CIP projects, the downtown metro station elevator. What's the status of that project?
so that project actually, the design is complete and we're working with purchasing right now to finish the bid document so we could actually go out to bid for that.
And is that elevator currently working? It does work.
Yes, it does go out of service from time to time, and it is our responsibility once we find out to get our contractors out there to make the repairs. This is definitely a needed project that really, a major project to make it, function and be operable in the long term.
Thank you. I just happened to walk by that boulevard regularly, so I see the elevator. I use the ramp up and down, but I see it sometimes with signs that says not working, so I was just curious. Thank you. Just to piggyback, it's not on this projects, but it's on the approved projects, the issue of the handrail on the Olive Bridge, just out of curiosity, where are we on that project?
Yes, Mr. Arnold. So thank you, board member Vanderpoort. That was a specific follow-up from City Council as well. And I could share that with you all that this current year, there is a project to get the rail replacements on both Magnolia and Olive going. And we're preparing the RFP to bring a designer on board. The specific additional direction provided by council Tuesday night, I believe, no, not Tuesday, the previous, the 17th, was to also look to task the designer with two more aesthetic options, because this railing and bridges, of course, go over railroad and they go over freeway, and those agencies definitely have their standards and requirements, so we can meet those. But there's also the option of maybe something a little more pleasing to the eye that we will consider. And the goal, given the fact that there's also discussions of a widening of Olive Bridge, again, that was something that was ongoing years before I got here, to potentially work with Metro and their BRT efforts and provide a station, an actual station on what the other side of Olive Bridge. So no matter which side somebody is traveling on a rapid bus, let's say, they can access the regional metro rail system as well. So right now, entering a design phase soon for the railings for the safety project, and potentially we'll see where the BRT project goes, potentially work with Metro on a larger project. But in either case, we are submitting applications for federal funding under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's exciting. Hopefully it happens and we see it in my lifetime. I have a couple other quick questions. Under the traffic, transportation, and pedestrian access, I know, Mr. Hunt, this may not be in your wheel of information, but the status of the Chandler Bikeway extension, where we showed $985,000.
I can start that off, Madam Chair, and I know Assistant Community Development Director David Kriske is here, and he can pop up if I get something wrong or leave out a detail. But Chandler, at this point, staff were in the process of procuring a consultant for design services as well. We expect that work to begin late in the summer of this year coming up. We have there are some right-of-way issues to deal with to make sure let's say, simply the path is clear for us to construct a bike path, but that is entering the design phase.
Thank you very much. Also exciting, and hopefully it happens in my lifetime. Then the Olive Verdugo intersection improvements, I know that has a lot of neighborhood input that is critical to its progress, but I was wondering if there's been any progress on that. I know
Sure.
It's been a while.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Board Member Vanderboort. That was one of my follow-up slides from the 17th council meeting as well. I'm happy to share that with you. The Olive Verdugo Sparks, right? That's what we're talking about?
It's Olive
That
Verdugo and
intersection.
Sparks.
Yes. Just wanted to clear my mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So it's a potential, it's going to be a reconfiguration of that six-legged intersection. We're looking to provide safety for all roadway users and actually provide some landscaping and kind of a public open space to improve that area. We expect to come back again later in the summer coming up and with revised project alternatives and revised cost estimates. This is all Measure R funded. And right now we have 1.6 million for design and potentially partially construction as well. And we're looking to weave in and address some additional improvements as suggested by residents from public outreach a few years ago.
Thank you again. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to ask some questions.
Thank you. Just following up on that same topic with the Olive Sparks intersection, is that what you were going to talk about, Mr.? Something. Is there going to be coordination between the incoming BRT as well on that intersection, and how's that going to work?
Sure. Madam Chair, both the BRT potential coming into the Olive arterial, as well as neighborhood protection plans from development that's occurring on Olive will be considered as well.
Great, thank you. Yes, Mr. Brenner.
Couple things for Mr. Hahn. Number one, I mentioned briefly beforehand issue of like the police department roofing issues, repairs. And then you're also replacing HVAC equipment up there. In future, perhaps you could put it together, when you put these things together, ID who's going to be responsible for like installing HVAC equipment, particularly since, in my experience, there can be issues. And having looked at the roof as produced by Mr. Mayor, the idea that that particular roof installed 20-odd years ago was in bad shape, and in just horrible shape, and you're going to put new equipment up there, and like, oh my God. You can't replace the roof yet because they haven't the funds for replacing the roof there. So ideally, who's going to take responsibility for installing the equipment, number one? Who's going to take responsibility for making sure that there's no issues related to the equipment being installed? And people working up there are not going to damage it further than it already is, because it's in really horrible condition. Can't believe it. The other issue would be flooring at the police headquarters. In the future, remember, my experience, like I said, nationally as well as locally, when you're doing flooring, what kind of flooring are we talking about? Rugs? Are we talking about safety issues on a concrete floor? You remember we've got firemen that come off the street wearing rubber boots. You got to change their gear in presuming a locker room, shower up. That's flooring too. So what kind of flooring are we talking about? So when someone says, well, what kind of flooring are we doing? That's a serious issue, because different types of flooring have different types of cost and installation requirements. So in the future, it would be nice if you would break that down for us. That's all. Thank you.
Madam Chair? So a couple things. The same project manager that is handling the HVAC is handling the roof. So there's definite coordination there, and to make sure, the logistics are followed and we don't do things out of order, and good work that is done is not destroyed for more work
Yeah,
coming
I'm
in.
thinking in terms of not only the construction manager from the city, but like the contractors. The contractor for doing the roof repair is also responsible for the guy putting in the HVAC equipment, and there's two separate types of contractors, but the overall, who's going to make sure that they've done their good job, as well as facilities manager or whoever the project managers for the city. That's what I'm getting at.
So both the project manager from the city, and we either have in-house inspection or we hire contractors with the expertise,
That's what I
consultants
mean.
with the expertise to inspect the work to make sure it's installed properly.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
And both projects actually require a building permit, so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So basically, there will be
I would hope
checks and
so.
balance, yeah.
Okay.
And as far as the PD flooring, there's going to be a mix of different type of flooring. Right now, this is a first phase, or we're trying to identify the rural area that's needed to be replaced. And so the budget for that right now, for this portion of the project, it's a smaller project. And then in the future, what we're going to do is put a bigger project together, and then we're actually going to go out to bid. The first phase, this phase that we're working on right now, it's a co-op agreement. So what we did was, working with purchasing, we identified a contractor who could come in and provide the material.
Yeah. Of course, in that particular case, like, what exactly is being installed for the flooring? That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So-
Being a little more specific, that way, so you're not going to get the comment, well, I could go to the local store and buy rugs. Because I know it's not just rugs that you're going to be putting in.
Mr. Hahn,
So
may
if you
I-
would like specific, be a little more specific in the future, not this time, but in the future, as what's going to happen.
So-
Exactly where it's going to be happening, on what floor, because you've got more than one floor there, that needs to be worked on, I'm sure.
So through the chair, respectfully, board member, the design details of projects are not within the purview of the board. But we are happy to report about them at quarterly meetings. And the number one thing I want the board to know and the public to know, just like the public is Public Works customers with our major capital improvements, our internal departments that we serve are our customers, and nothing goes in with other departments, into other departments' facilities without their specific input. I don't know, Mr. Hahn doesn't know what PD and fire needs for flooring. We ask them, we know it's at the end of the life, and we get together with them and say, what is it you would like here? So they're really the ones, just like if you're building your home, I would like this, I need this, and we work that into the budget. And that's what we report the scope, budget, and schedule to this board Annually, we set it up. The details, not to the specific type of flooring in this example, for example, no more than roofing or windows or any other things that we're doing, or the type of asphalt that is going into our roadway rehabilitation projects, but definitely setting the program up every year, reporting to you on a quarterly basis, and answering those questions for sure, we're happy to do.
Ken, you've come to us and asked us to approve millions of dollars for flooring and other items. And on the police fire building over the 4 years, it's over $1 million. And all you said to us for flooring, I need, not great detail, but I need more explanation if you want my yes vote. Okay? That's one of the reasons why I opposed what you were proposing to council for this fiscal year, because you didn't provide any. On the storage yard, you didn't explain why there's been more than 100% increase when there's been about 12% inflation. I at least want, and I think some of my colleagues here want at least more information as to these big ticket items and why they cost so much and what the city is getting for it. And just saying because it's not, it's not within our purview of micromanaging. I agree about micromanaging, but it's in our purview to say yes or no to what you're promoting with regards expenditures with Prop P funds.
Exactly, and the board opinion and board members' individual opinions are noted for the record, and the vote is taken. So I absolutely understand, and we will do our best to provide the proper level of detail and answer the questions the best we can as we present, what is an annual now $18 million program to you.
All right, any further comments? Okay. Any other comments or questions from, yes, Mr. Vazia?
Just one request. I think the format of this report is a little bit changed. Is there a way that for the next report you can report us that how much of this budget is already spent?
Yes, that is definitely a goal. In this case, it was a report on the projects that were completed in the past 2 quarters. It is definitely a goal in future quarterly reports to say what phase we are in and the overall budget for the project and for the phase and how much basically % complete. So great point, and we appreciate it. We can get that in there.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I think a common thread between the last 2 comments is that sometimes the numbers presented on the reports aren't, the meaning behind them is a little unclear. So perhaps the request, underlying request is to ensure that the numbers that we see, that there's a purpose to them. So it's, I do, Mr. Vazia and I agree with you, it would be good to see the percentage that's been spent and what's left. I think going back to what Mr. Jackson was saying too, is that when we're making decisions on how much to spend or how much to approve, that the numbers, when you're budgeting, it's hard to know exactly how much you're going to spend on something because you don't know ahead of time what the materials are going to be. But I think because they have a deeper knowledge and what goes into these projects than myself, that they know kind of what the costs are, that for them that would be very meaningful information to have that a little more detailed, just so that they understand a little better how those costs got there. And then for those of us who don't have that knowledge, then we can, share that knowledge with each other. So I think that's the common thread between there is the meaning behind the numbers. So, and to that point, I agree as well. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the other folks? We have 2 left who haven't said anything. No? Okay, because I have a list too, Mr. Hahn, of some of the projects that are on the list that I'm curious about how they're doing. My first question, though, is the Measure P sign on that last slide. Where is that at? Because how important it is for me to have those Measure P signs out, so I want to know where it's located.
I had that in my council presentation. I can't think of it offhand. It's on 2 of our major, adjacent to 2 of the major roadways by the residential work.
Okay, what projects are they pointing at? That's
for our the annual residential paving project.
Oh, okay,
It's part
great.
of that. It's actually part of the contractor's contract to put up that sign.
Great. Can we put that up in every contract so that they're all over the peppered all over? I'm being a little exaggerative, but I do like the Measure P signs because it does show, it reminds folks what the Measure P funds are being used for and shows progress. So I do like that. And then also for a couple of the slides, for the DeVal driving range, which looks, to your point, it looks much, much nicer now. In fact, the first picture of the DeVal driving range, I wouldn't have even guessed it was a driving range. It didn't look like a driving range. So, but there is a lot of more grass on that project now. So I'm curious, do you know, we're in the middle of a drought now and all that's happening kind of at the same time. So I'm wondering, you mentioned recycled water earlier, but I'm wondering if there is there going to be any negative impact on the water usage because so much more grass has been installed in that area?
It's all recycled.
Okay, so there'll be minimal impact on the
Yes.
water usage or water, okay, great. And then in similar vein, for the lighting updates, the lighting looks great too. And to your earlier point about having a really bright field to play on, are those lights also low energy light installations as well?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so one of the items on the list was the central library, and I understand that the central library is still in the designing phase, right? They're still looking at the different options of what they want to put into it. But do you have any updates on what the central library process is?
Yeah, so right now, we're actually looking at the option of what type of project delivery. One of the options we're looking at is P3, the private-public partnership program. So that's something that we actually hired a consultant to help us navigate through that process. We're looking at funding. They're helping us put a concept together for the Civic Center. So we're looking at the library and the Civic Center there, in that whole area there, right outside the CSB building. They are going to go to council in September to get approval to move on to the RFP process to secure a developer to negotiate and move forward with the next phase of the project. The consultant actually will be here in August to deliver a kind of a presentation to IOB, so you will get some information on it. And I believe in July, they're going to go to council, and there's going to be a public hearing or a closed session. I can't remember which one it is, but so in July, council will get to hear it. August, they will be here to present it to the IOB. And in September, they will go to council, hopefully get approval to move on to the next phase of the project.
Wow, that's right around the corner. That's
Yes.
a great update. Thank you very much. Good news. And the community gardens you mentioned, I was going to ask about that, but you mentioned that they are opening this weekend on the 30th, May
Yeah, I think
30th,
on
right?
Monday, that's the information I received, and 28th, even earlier.
Oh, wow, because I haven't seen anything on social media, and that would be great to get the information out to the community about that, because they've been looking forward to it. I mean, they've been working on it, and
They are going to do a press release.
great, thank you. Let's see, and similarly, the dog park is on the list, I see. Do we have any momentum with the dog park and getting that set up? I think it was 2024 was the original date of expect.
They're in design right now.
Is 2024 still the? Yeah, there's a lot of interest in the community for the dog park. People are waiting to get their dogs over there, for sure.
Absolutely. Through the chair, Diego Ceballos, Deputy Director of Park and Recreation, I invite all of you to come out to our grand opening of the community gardens on the 28th, 9 a.m. We're going to do a soft open. Irrigation has been completed as of yesterday, and we're going to start building as early as Saturday. For the dog park, LADWP still has a project that is underway. That project should be wrapping up towards the tail end of the year. We are currently working with a consultant on the design work. And then as soon as LADWP is complete with their project, then we're going to be moving into construction, which should then take us another year out.
Great. Okay, thank you. And remind me that LAWDP. DWP.
Los Angeles Department of
Letters.
Water and Power.
They are paying for it, right? They're supporting it or
Partially.
being funded partially? Okay.
Yes, partially funding the project, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's exciting news. One of the items on the list was also the downtown San Fernando Boulevard refiguration. Do you have an update for that?
Yes, Madam Chair, board members. That was also a request of council that it provided update at the 17th meeting. And what that is a consideration to make downtown San Fernando Boulevard one-way operations with parking and to expand outdoor dining between Magnolia and Olive. And we are in the process of getting a consultant on board. It is a joint project that we have with the Community Development Department. At the 17th meeting, council directed staff to also have the consultant consider complete closure, eliminating cars, and that's the additional task, so we'll get that going. We're looking to start design in the summer and continue through January, and get council's approval after that, and implement the improvements in spring of 2023. And this is also a Measure R funded project.
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
I understand you probably have a lot more questions. I just, historical record, I've been around longer than I care to admit. And about 50 plus years ago, the city of Burbank closed San Fernando between those two areas, and it was an absolute blast.
The Golden Mall.
Yes, the infamous Golden Ball. So I hope someone looks back to history and doesn't relive those mistakes that were made by our predecessors.
Well, I imagine we will have an opportunity to see that project before us at some point before it's or at least more
With the
information about
updates
it.
that we provide, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I have more opportunity for input. Okay, that actually was my last question, Mr. Jackson, believe it or not. So, any other last-minute questions before we wrap up? Yes, Mr. Vandervoort.
Not a question, a comment, so
Yes,
I'll wait
please.
for.
Go ahead. I'm done. So go ahead and feel free.
I listened carefully to the comments and the input from my colleagues, and I struggle with the idea of commenting at this point or not, but I wanted to make a point here, and it's a general observation for all of us up here on the board. We are the Oversight board, and our task is to provide that for the funds that are coming from Measure P. And there was a vote that allowed for the creation of substantial funds. Where we were spending $4 million, we're now spending $18 million. So the numbers are huge. And I think Mr. Bergman has a humongous task to find a way to allow us to do that oversight without micromanaging. I think none of us want to do that. But we, in my opinion, my humble opinion, and perhaps it's not shared by the rest of the board, but in my humble opinion, we are not really providing enough of an oversight recommendation to council. Perhaps they feel it's enough, and that's fine. But to me, the voters were told, look, these are supplemental funds. We're not going to take away any of the funds that we did before. These are supposed to supplement what we were doing. And indeed, they are supplemental funds. But you look at something like the Bell, a project that brings the city, $1 million in income this last year. That went to the general fund. So now we are providing funds to do a 20-year park plan from the Measure P funds. I'm not revisiting what has been approved. I'm simply suggesting that at a quarterly review is an appropriate time to ask ourselves, how are we providing adequate oversight? And this may or may not be something that has an answer. And I'm not sure how we obtain that answer or the guidance to be more effective for Mr. Bergman and for Mr. Hahn and all the staff that sits here and helps us. But I personally, I feel a certain amount of angst at recognizing that I don't know how to provide this oversight well enough. If we ask about the flooring question, drill down a little bit, is that the oversight that we need? On the other hand, we are looking at major dollars, and at the end of the day, we are rubber stamping what has been suggested by STAMP. And I don't use those terms as a negative comment. I just think that's the reality. So thank you for allowing me to speak out loud and to see if If anyone else has other ideas, perhaps this board needs to meet in a slight retreat or something for a few hours with the help of a staff person who will help us understand better how to work better to be more effective for staff and more specifically for the public. The council created this board with a commitment that we are providing oversight of major bucks. I mean, this is not a couple of dollars, and yet I honestly feel that me personally, I'm not providing enough of an oversight, or I don't know how to do it. So I definitely think that's something that maybe I can throw in the atmosphere. All of us can think about it a little more and find a way to make Mr. Bergman's life and staff, and not only Mr. Bergman, everyone, a little better and then more effective as well, if indeed we can do that. Perhaps at the end, you can't, because we're meeting once a month. We're seeing numbers at the big picture. Either we agree or we don't agree, and then we move on. But that's my observation at this my quarterly observation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vanderboort. Yes, who was first?
Well, I agree with you, Mr. Vanderburg. I mean, I looked at what the council acted on 2 days ago in the staff report, which came from Financial Services. In the paragraph that's devoted to infrastructure investment plan, I assume Public Works had some input to that section of this report. And I focus on, near the end, it says, the prioritized projects were then presented to the Infrastructure Oversight Board for review at 2 public meetings, the second of which the IOB formally approved the capital plan for inclusion in the proposed budget. And if I didn't sit here, I could think easily that we all held hands collectively and chanted Kumbaya. You know, that was not the case. There was considerable dissent, at least Mr. Vanderborg and I, and that was not presented to council. As we said earlier, the meeting minutes, which were revised, you know, it's moot. The issue is over. And, you know, for me to sit up here or at home for 2 years, it strikes me that this is pretty much a waste of time. I've written a letter of resignation. I haven't submitted it to the mayor, but I'm on a knife's edge because I don't think we're doing at all what the voters thought we would be doing.
Chair and members of the board, I do want to remind everyone that with this item agendized for today really just is a report from the staff on the status in this third quarter CIP report. I think we might be going a little off topic for now. So if there are
Discussing what our responsibility is under the charter, and this is part of it.
but this is not part of the agenda item. If you have individual comments that you want to raise to Director Bergman to maybe facilitate some of your preferences for some of the items that go on the board, then maybe you can communicate with him directly. But at this point, for this item, this is just on to receive and file this report.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that keeping our comments to how this report may or may not be effective is important. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Brennan.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you, Mr. Moore, or you, Mr. Jackson. However, I just remember when we first started a couple years back, how often I would ask, where did you get that number from? Every meeting, I would, where did you get that number? Not you, sir, but one of your predecessors. And all they would say, like, it was out of thin air. And so working with thin air projections, it's like, finally, we get down to now where I can say, okay, maybe it's a little bit too much to ask for more specifics on construction projects, obviously, my background. And I just want a little, just to kind of move along, to make sure everything's running smooth on your end, from my perspective. And other than that, just trying to get numbers initially when we first started, we couldn't get any numbers at all. They were like, hypothetical this, hypothetical that. And where'd you get it? How would you produce it? Couldn't tell us. Now we know. So we have improved a little bit, but as far as like, are we going to tell the department how to run? Probably not. But yes, we can criticize and ask questions and hopefully direct them a little bit.
Honorable Chair, may I just?
Yes,
for a
please,
sec?
please.
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Aren't the scopes of work and the proposal packages and the agreements, all that, it's a public record. So we should have access to, because you were speaking about the flooring and the roofing and like materials. So to look at the specifics and all of that should be in the contractors and the proposal packages, and that should be public record. I'm sure it is, isn't it?
Everything is public record.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure the materials that you were speaking of before, the specific, or you were speaking about the materials, the flooring, the roofing, like the specifics, that should be in the package somewhere. So how, you were saying, how do we get access to seeing the specifics?
Yeah, just go over it a little bit. Doesn't have to be really specific, but just in general, we're going to do this, the other, because this area needs work.
Yeah.
And having visited with one of the other project managers on like the roofing at the police department, I was shocked. So when I asked about who's going to overlook the project besides the project manager from the city, I'm thinking in terms of which contractor is going to be responsible for doing a very complicated, in other words, installation, which it is, for serious air conditioning for a building like this or the police department, and then to waterproof it in to the building so there's no issues. There's already issues in the building now. We don't want any further issues related to the new work.
Right.
What I was getting at.
Mr. Berkman, did you have another comment you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to at least put it out there that this is a relatively very young board. And this, it started basically a little bit before I got here. And I've been the liaison and managed several types of commissions and committees and boards, including public works infrastructure boards. And the thing I would say is we all, obviously, I speak for myself and for the team and all city staff, seek continuous improvement. And with your input and our analysis, I think to Board Member Vanderbort's point, we can find that right balance. So from staff's perspective, we need to move. There's a lot of stuff we have to do. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. Capital projects are not the only thing that public works engineers and facility staff do. There's a myriad of state programs, for example, and regulations and thousands upon thousands of permits. And there's a lot of things. There is, we'll find that right balance. But this board, as I understand it, is tasked with providing oversight and input of our capital programs and our maintenance programs and a little bit of traffic programs like our speed hump policy. And I think we can achieve that right balance with, professional input and proper protocol. I have my own boss who has 5 other bosses. So there's definitely really not micromanaging, but I'm under my own expectations to make sure everything is done properly. Plan specs and estimates of myself and the team that we put out there are properly designed and constructed and can be maintained properly in the future, which is also part of our report to you. So I definitely appreciate all the opinions and seek to work with you to find that sweet spot, and we will.
And Chair, if I may, there is a list of roles and responsibilities in the municipal code for at the IOB, and one of them is to receive quarterly reports on the status of funded projects, and that's what this item is. There are other opportunities to provide advice and recommendations on priority or things of that nature. It's just my responsibility to let you know when, in my opinion, I think we're moving a little bit further from just what's put on the agenda and try to keep us back on track.
Thank you. Thank you. This is
Chair
clearly
Takahashi,
yes,
if
please.
I may. Regarding the PD flooring project, maybe I could kind of dive into it just a little bit in that. So there was a condition assessment that was actually put together by an architect. So he identified all the different type of materials that to be replaced. So based on their recommendations, the program was put together for replacement. So as far as the estimate, it was based on the report itself. So I apologize, I didn't mention that earlier.
Thank you all for your comments. I think that moving forward, that as we have each of these items on the agenda, if we find, like we had when we were speaking about the numbers and the budget numbers and how those numbers perhaps weren't as meaningful as they could be, these are our opportunities to help identify where perhaps we are not as informed or not able to do as much as we can, and then try to make that better. I think that's an opportunity there. And if there's something that, I know, and I agree that there are times when it's frustrating and we're not being able to perhaps have the conversation we want to, but we can add agenda items. So if there's something that you feel like need to talk about, I've worked with Ken about agenda items and Mr. Berkman, and we can find a way to get that agenda item on there to talk about it. And specifically for the items for each details and getting public records, also, you can email ahead of time and ask these things. So that's another, you can ask him here too, but like today I emailed all the things I asked today, I emailed Mr. Hahn to let him know that I was going to ask questions, so that way he could be ready with answers. So that's helpful too, and not to say that you shouldn't ask them, but if you want to have a specific answer, it gives him time to then look it up and have that answer for you. So they're just some ideas of how we can move forward. I'm not saying that anybody's opinion is not valid. It's very valid. But just I think it's important, too, that if we have frustrations, to find ways that specifically to make things better, too. So thank you all for this conversation. It's an ongoing one, clearly. We're going to keep moving forward with it. All right. So for the third quarter CIP report, anything else on this particular agenda item? Anyone wants to say? No? Okay. Thank you all for the presentation. Thank you for the discussion. And we will now move forward to the speed hump policy. Is that Mr. Hahn again, or?
That
Mr.
will
Berkman?
be me.
Okay.
Honorable Chair, board members, unfortunately, Traffic Engineering Manager Edward Hugh could not be with us, so I am going to provide this update. So on March 24th's meeting with this group, we presented the updated speed hump policy for the city. We heard your comments and noted them, and we are providing a revised, updated policy for your consideration and approval to move forward to present to City Council for their approval and incorporation into our policies. The attachment 1, hopefully, is before you. What we did was highlight the specific areas of change to make sure they were clear based on comments that we've heard. One of them on the first page of the attachment, the kind of bottom right box aesthetics. We wanted to note in the disadvantages that street sweepers may have difficulty vacuuming debris near the speed humps. One of the conversations that we had was about the street grades, and that was probably our most significant change recommendation, which allows more streets in our hillside communities to be eligible for the potential installation of the speed humps. As we talked about, you don't want to install them in a grade that's too steep for safety issues with travelers and vehicles. But the highlight of streets with grades of 8% or greater will not qualify for installation of speed humps or the speed tables. And that was, I think it was 6%, if I remember right. It might have even been 5%. But you can see we have a grade of 5 to 8%. This is not a change. This was in there, and you've seen it last time. 5 to 8% can qualify for the speed tables. And one of the requests that you had was to provide examples and a couple of pages into it with the exhibits. You'll see in the actual picture, if you keep scrolling down, my IT friends or whoever's controlling the video. Oh, Hoon, thank you. Go down for the picture. We included that in our policy so people know what an actual speed hump looks like. Next, we are providing samples of a speed cushion, which you can see is a slotted speed hump that allows those to be installed on our fire emergency response streets. And then a speed table is provided a little larger, so the grade, how would I put it? The impact or the transition is not as significant. So that would be where streets of higher grades would receive those potentially. And that, I believe, were the changes we made based upon your input. So we look forward to any feedback and hopefully your approval to move this to the City Council. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question, last time when this was before us, there was a provision in which you were saying that concrete streets could not have speed humps. I didn't see that in what was presented today. Is that still part of your recommendations to council?
So concrete, they took that provision out, so they can't actually put it on concrete now.
Okay, because the reason I was going to mention that, I had misgivings about it. I went along with you folks. But, it's rare for concrete streets, but there are some in my neighborhood. I mean, 6th Street between Walnut and Birmingham, Grinnell between 6th Street and Sunset, and Amherst between 6th Street and Glen Oaks. And I think that last street was where that tragic accident occurred. Subsequent to the meeting, I was going over to a friend's house over in the Los Feliz area of Los Angeles. And as I was driving to his house, I noticed that Avocado Street, which runs parallel to Los Feliz Boulevard on the south side between Rowena and Commonwealth, is a concrete street. And it has speed humps. It has like 3 or 4. And so I was going to ask, but since you've deleted it, I wanted to know why City of LA could do something that we said we couldn't do in Burbank.
And through the chair, the issue with the concrete streets, putting asphalt on top of the concrete is a binding issue. So we're worried about the damage and not sitting properly and binding and bonding properly with the concrete. The solution that we are doing with concrete streets, if we're requested, is kind of a pilot program. They're rubber speed humps. So they're kind of prefab, then we can basically bolt them in there. So we're going to try that and see how that works.
All right. I mean, the street I mentioned in Los Angeles is level. It's not, there's no grade, which is similar to the long stretch of 6th Street, which level. I don't know if the people in that area want speed humps or speed bumps or speed anything, but there is speeding going on in that neighborhood. And I felt we should have at least the flexibility in order to have some form of speed hump if the residents want it. And I see that you beat me once again to the draw, and kudos. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Yes, Ms. Shaw.
I have a quick comment. Thank you very much. The last time we met, I specifically asked for the picture of or the example or the specs for the cushion, and here it is. I appreciate it very much. And it's just nice to have a visual, because the term cushion, so I thank you very much for that, for the photos and the specs. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Vanderpoort.
Madam Chair, very quickly, thank you to staff. This is really clear. Thanks for adding the diagrams as well as the pictures and also the clarifications. So thank you very much.
Yes, same. I have a couple questions. So we had talked about this, how steep the roads were in the last meeting and what that limit was. So for the roads that are more than 8% grade and they have issues with speeding or they're interested in slowing traffic down, what are the alternatives to speed humps when they're too steep to be able to go down?
Well, it depends on the roadway. Traffic engineers work with police department to take a look at areas that are requesting assistance to mitigate speeding vehicles. And in this case, if speed humps weren't applicable or there wasn't support to install them, then there are other means and methods of maybe striping or signing or, of course, enforcement actions. And we work on that actually frequently without the public knowing. We just know and work with PD to do so.
Okay, so if their grade is too steep, they still have other alternatives. They don't, if speed bumps aren't going to be working for their area, so that's good to know. And then We'd also talked about, at the last meeting when we were discussing this, we talked about speed bumps that are close to stop signs, in front of stop signs, to help people, encourage people to stop at stop signs. And since that conversation, I've noticed there are a number of streets in Burbank that have speed bumps fairly close to in front of stop signs. And we had talked about that not being really an option, or that's not preferred, but they do exist. So I was wondering if you could speak to that, if that's something that can be requested specifically for that stop sign, not necessarily speeding on the whole street, but maybe people don't stop. Is that also part of the process? Can that be requested?
Well, it's, again, under the traffic engineer's purview to take a look at it and see if it makes sense. When we talked about it last time, I think what I said was typically speed bumps, which speed bumps are the small ones that we see in parking lots, for example. And a lot of times they want to put those in front of stop signs. Stop signs on private property are not legally enforceable. So they put, it's private property, it's not public standards, for example. So they tend to put those sometimes in front of stop signs in private properties. Excuse me. And there are examples. I think we put one in when the Starlight Estates issues were happening during COVID, when it just started, at the base of, is it Bel Air? There is a speed hump pretty close to a stop sign as I think it's on both sides coming down the hill, but just before you go. So in essence, with coordination with police and traffic engineers looking at, there are specific situations where we could put a speed hump kind of closer to a stop sign. But we definitely don't want to have a standard of heavy braking action entering a stop sign and a bump, which can
Right.
cause drivers to lose control potentially.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that they're set back enough so that you have plenty of time before you go over the hump to get to the stop sign, but it's close enough that you can't really get much more speed up, or it would make, you're already slowing down by the time you get over the hump to get to the stop sign.
Right. Probably specifically, I could say those streets are typically the 25 miles an hour, and we do need to give time for people to traverse the speed hump and time to react to stop signs.
Right.
That's probably what we're thinking.
Okay, great. Thank you. And well, my last question is that just recently someone had asked me about getting speed humps, so I was going to refer to the website about how to process to do that, but right now couldn't find anything on the website. So either it's hard to find or it's been taken down because it's in process. And my question is, once we approve this, when will this be available for folks to then be able to apply for their speed humps?
So once we have this approval, we would go to council. I don't have a date. We need to put it on the forecast and get it on there, but I would think it would be within a few months.
Okay. In the meantime, can people request it, or they have to wait till this goes through?
Oh, absolutely. No, there's an existing policy, and we have plenty of requests in the queue for the traffic engineers to take a look at, and they can continue to request them. Obviously, the modifications for folks that may be on steeper streets or on concrete streets or on emergency route streets, they should wait, and they can talk to our engineering division folks to see if their street is one of those streets, and
Okay.
they should wait for this new policy.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Chair
so-
Takahashi, the link is actually in the policy, so.
Yeah, it gave me a 404, which like page doesn't exist. Yeah, so, yeah. So I will go back and I will talk to IT about it, because that clearly must be an IT thing. Yeah, okay, great, thanks. Okay, that's all I've got. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Just one more comment about speed humps near stop signs. I mean, in my neighborhood, you folks have been very active, and you've put up probably a dozen new stop signs over the last few years. I think that's great, but possibly an unintended result of that is running those stop signs is epidemic. And so anything that you folks can do to make things safer, I mean, the police come out periodically, and of course, the speeders are, see the PD and they stop, possibly. And I was over at the airport, they have those grates that you go over, which you can go over one way, and maybe they can be sensed that if you run through the stop sign, they'll come up and shred your tires. I think that would be, a great idea, but maybe it wouldn't pass the city attorneys. Anyway.
If I may, Madam Chair, and with the city attorney next to me, just very briefly, it is a good point that all stop signs have to go through a warrant analysis, and there are specific about 10 or 12 conditions, not all of them, but one or two that need to be met to properly install a stop sign. And if a stop sign is not warranted, but it's installed, those are the types of issues that happen. Because as drivers, we know, believe it or not, because it's the same standards everywhere, it should be, you know when you're not supposed to stop, or you come up to an intersection and go, I should be stopping here. So that's the feeling people say, I don't, this stop sign, I'm just gonna go. So it's something that we're very aware of and appreciate that. We work with PD and the residents as they report it to try and curtail that.
Quick question, do Measure P funds play a part in paying for the stop signs that have been installed? Because they're incredibly beneficial, incredibly visible. It's like, you know, they're everywhere. I see them in the Rancho. I mean, I walk a lot, so, and I see them in your neighborhood as well, in the Hill.
So this, through the chair, this can be our last non-speed hump policy question, if we're getting off topic, but those are general fund.
General fund?
Yes.
Thank you, just curious, thank you.
Are we voting to approve this one?
Please.
Yes, okay. So would someone like to make a motion to approve the speed hump policy? Yes, Mr. Byrne?
I make a motion that we approve the speed bump policy.
Okay, great. Second. Mr.
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Coronado. Okay, let's take a vote, please.
Okay. Actually, Ken, I think we can do a group vote now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for pointing that
Yeah.
out, Ms. Rosales.
Of course.
Madam Chair, the good news about live meetings that I concurred or got confirmation from the city attorney's office is that now that we are together, we can take a group vote and basically say, well, not leading the witnesses, but all approve, say aye, and all who do not say nay or no, and we can take that tally that way.
Oh, nice.
That was going to recommend that Diana was chair. Do it that way.
All right, well, let's do it then go ahead.
I should have mentioned it earlier, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
great.
Okay, so all those who approve for the revised speed hump policy? Say
Aye.
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 All who oppose? Awesome, 7-0.
And abstentions too, right? Oh, do I have to gavel that? Vote, motion carried. Yay, vote
Thank you very
approved.
much.
All right, we have two more items. These ones I don't think will be quite as, well, I should say, you never know with this group. So number 3, let's see, discussion for consideration of assigning a liaison from the IOB to the Transportation Commission. We had discussed this at the last meeting with the co-meeting with the Transportation Commission, and it was a popular idea. So would anyone like to start the discussion about choosing a liaison? Or do we have to discuss the topic of it first, or just
Well,
in general?
Madam Chair, I could help with an introduction.
Okay, great.
That last meeting, the joint meeting with the Transportation Commission, both bodies were wanting to consider having an individual liaison to each other's meetings. And that is how this got on the agenda.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any general comments about that they would like to share with the group? Everyone is, I believe it was a unanimous vote to approve that the last meeting, right? Everyone heard? Yeah. Okay, so looks like we all want to do this. That's what we would like to do. Okay, do we have to vote to do it first and then choose a person, or how does this work? Do we make a motion to say we'd like to have a liaison?
I'll leave it up to the board, but the way I see this, it's a discussion between yourselves as to whether you want a liaison and who that's going to be. So once you discuss amongst yourselves and decide, then you can make a vote formalizing that. I did want to add, though, as the liaison, you're basically going over to the Transportation Commission and observing, taking notes. And an alternative that I thought of is, instead of having that as a formal position, any one of the members could technically do that as well. And then if there is an issue that you would like to discuss amongst yourselves as part of the IOB, then we could agendize that for the future as well. So that is an alternative, instead of formally assigning one liaison.
Right, okay. Thoughts? I personally like the idea of having a formal liaison. I think it's nice to know this is the person who is going to go each meeting. But if there's nobody who's willing to do that, we could take turns, or we could make it a little informal. Does anyone want to be the liaison to the other commission? Has a lot of time on their hands and wants to go in another commission meeting?
If we can take turn, it's.
Yeah? Okay. So the idea is that we would, each month take turns to? Is anybody, okay, because we could rotate through the 7 of us and through the months, and then just negotiate if we can't do it that month and switch around? Okay. Do you want to go down just alphabetically and start with you, Mr. Avazian, and you'll be
Yeah.
the first one, and then we'll go through alphabetically, and that makes me near the end?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Okay, so each month, then would Ms. Rosales let us know when that would be, and then, or we would have to figure that out ourselves, or how would that work?
If Ken's okay with it, I can set up like a little roster and just email it out to the board. If you're okay with that.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
That
yeah, I
sounds
can
great.
definitely do that and send that out.
Okay, that sounds great.
And just for clarification for the chair, since it sounds like we're kind of doing a formal action to appoint a liaison, but that role is going to rotate, I think maybe the direction would be to establish what that protocol is, and then that way you won't have to talk amongst yourselves to formally designate who the next person is going to be, because then that has to be agendized. So
Right.
for logistical purposes, maybe it seems like what you're saying is to have IOB staff compile the list, and then they'll just contact the next board member when it's their month, as opposed to talking amongst yourselves and figuring out who that person is for that day, and also who the alternative is if that person can't make it.
Great. Yeah, but I think that's what we were saying. And I like the idea of having an alternative too. So maybe the list can have us rotating, and then an alternative also lists, so in case the first person can't go.
Yeah, I can send out maybe like who would be first in line to do it. Maybe if they can't, then the second person
Yeah,
scheduled after
maybe
that.
just go down on the next person
Yeah.
on the list.
Mhm.
and-
Right, stagger the list one name, and that could be the alternative.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds great. Okay.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
What days are there meetings on? Every third?
They are
Monday.
the third Monday at 5 of the
5 or
month, yeah.
5:30, yeah. Uh-huh. And they're in the community services building, I think, right?
I'm not sure, actually.
I
So they-
believe
Now they're
they
live.
are.
I'm not sure where they meet live.
So they used to meet there,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe we could have our secretary establish the list based upon alphabetical order, and then for the first person, clarify those details as to what date and where it's going to be, so that they could figure out availability.
Yeah, I could even maybe on the first of every month just send out a reminder, saying, hey, this is when the next traffic commission meeting is. These are the next people that are in line. Send out the details just so that you have it first thing at the first of the month or the first week of the month, just to be prepared.
That sounds great. Yeah, yes.
Madam Chair, and can we ask that we also have a confirmation of attendance? This way you
Absolutely.
can contact the next one. If, for example, it's me and I'm out of town, or anybody else, then at least you get an answer quickly, and
Yeah.
we avoid the, whoops, I didn't know.
Great
it."
idea.
Right.
Thank you, yes.
Right. Wonderful. Okay, do we need to take a vote on that, or just we agreed on it and that's good enough?
Madam Chair, just for our city attorney to hear this, just to set the table of what can be done going forward and the expectations of the folks attending the meeting. It is a report back of items that are of interest, and I would add within the purview and roles and responsibilities of the Infrastructure Oversight Board. And it can't be discussed, of course, but it's the opportunity for the board to say, hey, I'd like to put that on a future agenda for discussion. So I just wanted to let folks know what the expectations are.
Okay, great.
Thank
And
you.
since it's a public meeting, and if there's a report out of the public meeting, it wouldn't be any information that's new or agendized. So if there's someone wanted to make an announcement that was made from that meeting, does it have to be agendized? Or, like say, for example, a liaison went to the meeting, and the Transportation Commission discussed publicly one of the projects in the city, and then the liaison said, they discussed the project in the city, and this is what they said. That's fine, because it's already on public record, right? Or does it have to be agendized?
No, absolutely. And that's the purpose of the liaison, to report back what they heard that is of interest to the board members.
Perfect, great. So can we keep that report back in the announcements section? We'll just leave it in announcements, and that can be one of the announcements.
I was going to say, Madam Chair, we could do it one of several ways. We could keep it as part of the announcements, and then we could keep that as existing item C, and however iteration it comes in the next agendas, or you can formally put in a placeholder that says report from TC liaison, or however you want to do it. But it's just a matter of preference.
Anyone have a preference on that, either way? No? I like simplicity myself, but works for me.
For the board's consideration, I would suggest keeping it in announcements, and if it becomes a more regular topic, maybe we pull it out as a separate agenda item. So maybe we start that way.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Okay, great. So we just move forward with that then. Thank you. Okay, last one is a similar discussion about working with the Transportation Commission, is considering scheduling an annual or semi-annual IOB and transportation joint meeting like the one we had before. I was the one who brought this onto the agenda because I felt like that meeting was extremely useful. And it took a while to get scheduled, took us a while to get together. And I thought that if we had it in the calendar on a regular basis, then that would be part of our process and a good check-in with them. Any thoughts or considerations on that? Yeah? Yeah? And it's on the agenda for either as annual or semi-annual joint meeting. I feel like annual is sufficient, but if you folks feel like semi-annual would be better, or what do you think? Yes, Mr. Vandervoort.
Oh, I'll go with annual, Madam Chair. I think we can always see if we need to chew on this further and change it, but for now, an annual, took us well over a year or two to get to the meeting, so.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair and
Yes.
board members, may I suggest in this consideration, if you move forward with this and there is an annual meeting or semi-annual meeting, that you do not schedule it for your heavy lift months, as I like to say, of February, March, and April, where we prepare the capital program together.
Yeah, I can understand that request. So would there be a month that would be the most preferable time, that would be the least heavy lifting for both of our commissions? Is there a thought of when that might be, from your perspective? So I think for our perspective, and I don't want to speak for the group, but it seems for me that just as long as we get a regular meeting, it doesn't necessarily have to be a particular time, but just having that regular touch-in. So when do you recommend considering the schedule of the city?
I'll ask through our city attorney, would it be appropriate for the chairs of both bodies to meet and discuss that and mutually come back to their board and commission with a couple of months of requested, potential months to meet?
I don't see an issue with that, Director Berkman. It's just one individual member of the board speaking to another separate individual member of the board, so I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Every leap year. So is the board okay with me meeting with the chair of the transportation and coming up with a date at the next meeting? Okay, great.
Yes.
Then let's do that. Great, thank you. I'm excited. I like the idea of having that regularly scheduled so that we can check in and we know. And if there's something that comes up that we want to speak with them about, we can save it for that meeting and have it ready to go. I like that. It's great. Okay, great. Thank you. Now we're on to wrapping up the meeting with the last few items here. Introduction of additional agenda items. Does anybody have anything tonight? Yes, Mr. Vandervoort.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I will take this opportunity to see if there's a way, and I'm not sure I have the right wording, but have an opportunity for this board to have a whether it's an informal, formal meeting, that is one that's agendized, et cetera, that would allow us to work with staff and perhaps, I'm not sure what the right word is, somebody who can facilitate, a facilitator for the meeting. As Mr. Bergman indicated, we're a new board. And in that respect, maybe it'll give us an opportunity to not discuss specific projects. You know, we can get out of the weeds and or get out of the specifics, but rather think about how we can better advise the council with respect to oversight. And I'm very concerned with that because that is the reason we're here. We didn't get created to talk about speed bumps, although it is part of our task. But at the end of the day, I would like to see us, if we can work, staff can work maybe with you or anybody else to create an item for a future agenda where we can decide how to improve our ability to be better at oversight. Maybe I'm, you know, and this is just me, so maybe I'm barking up at the wrong tree here, but if there's a consensus from the board, we can spend a separate meeting or a specific meeting. At the end of the day, not every meeting is heavy lifting meeting, so maybe in September or in August or in October, whenever things are less crowded, we can do that. And again, it can be a public meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything, you know, other than that. And then maybe at that time we can talk about the wording of the recommendations to receive and file, because the words receive and file, I think our city attorney made it very clear, limit us as to what we can do with anything that is presented here. So maybe it needs to, something that can also be considered to say, you know, comment, receive and file, or anything like that, if that will help us. You know, again, this may be a separate item, but I think changing that wording may make it a little easier for this board to express opinions that are a little less than just simply receive the information, ask questions, and filing. So I know I've thrown two things out there, maybe they're two separate items, and see if there's consensus to move forward to such an item on the agenda.
Yeah, I do get the sense, since this topic has come up a number of times, that we do want to discuss this. So I agree. I think it would be good to find a way to put this formally on the agenda somehow on a not busy or not heavy lifting month, to dedicate some time to going through this. I don't know. What came to mind is goal setting or and that doesn't sound right either. Just but that. Workshopping our improvement workshop. I don't know. Thoughts? Yes.
Yeah, perhaps a pending agenda item could be added for, to hold a workshop to discuss and, I'll just throw in the word, like further define the Infrastructure Oversight Board's roles and responsibilities. Something like that? Perhaps, yeah, because we just had that with the Transportation Commission. That was part of what our discussion was. That was specific to traffic, though, really. Though. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. This is taking a look at the ordinance that created this body and delving into exactly what level of responsibilities and input this board is supposed to have. Mm-hmm. And we just have to figure out who would facilitate that meeting, and staff can consider that. The time frame sounds like a proper time frame in the fall, and that's something we could shoot for. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, can we add that to the, it sounds like it's a unanimous one. Yeah, so can we add? Yeah. Thank you. I'm really glad you brought that up. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have something that's not really an additional agenda item, but I hope the city attorney will give me a little leeway. I'd ask that we adjourn tonight in memory of the 21 children that were, and teachers that were killed, murdered at Robb Elementary School in Texas, and the 10 patrons at Top Supermarket in Buffalo, New York, that were also murdered by a teenager. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for suggesting that. I will add that to the end. Any other agenda items? I have one, well, I don't know if it's agenda item, but I did email Mr. Berkman and Mr. Hahn earlier about an update for the Burbank Bridge. And I know that's not exactly our purview and it's transportation. However, I keep getting asked about it. So we don't need I don't think we need a lengthy one, but it would be nice just to have it on the agenda for, 10 minutes to be able to get an update on the Burbank Bridge, the biking lanes, the travel lanes, what's going on with that, so that we can ask it, and the community has an opportunity to ask about it too. Would anyone be opposed to adding that on the agenda? It doesn't have to be a long belabored one, but to maybe get just a formal update to have an opportunity for folks to tune in on that specific thing.
Madam Chair, may I throw something out there for the board's consideration? Mr. Krisky is the project manager and has been providing many updates for individual residents that have asked, as well as council. So would a summary email to the entire board suffice to start and see if we need a presentation that at least can get the same information in all of your hands?
Yeah, that'd be a great start. And then from there, we can look at what we got, what we have. and
Okay, I
see.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I've got. Oh, well, wonderful meeting, thank you. And let's see, be pending agenda items, right, mentioned that. In June, we have Parks and Recreation project update, which is going to be exciting. And discussion and determination of location of future in-person IOB meeting. What's this?
Yes, Madam Chair, board members, without getting into a discussion about it, I wanted to put this on the agenda to see if you thought this was the right place for our meetings, or I have another idea in mind that might be better and more efficient for us. So I'd like to talk about it.
Oh. Urban Press?
You read my mind.
Okay. All right.
Madam Chair, may I
yes.
ask a quick question?
Sure.
As Life Asset, I will not be able to attend next meeting, but I could join you online. Is that still a possibility now at this point? I'm just going to be out of town.
As of now, we're only doing public comment via Zoom, but we're not
Right, Chair.
broadcasting the meeting.
Did you go ahead?
Oh, I was thinking we could discuss this with the chair direct, or the board member directly outside the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Just any way that I could participate, if there is a way, and if not, at the very least, listen in and yell at the television or
Yeah.
the computer.
You can text Mr. Berkman.
No, I don't do texting. He's safe from me.
He'll discreetly look at his phone. All right. So before we wrap up, let's take a moment to.
Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I just had one note for future potential. We currently don't have any items pending for July. So next meeting, there is a potential of not having a July meeting. So maybe we get a vacation, maybe not, but I just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
That was it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so would you like to lead the adjournment?
There really isn't anything to lead. I mean, I had the list of the children from the elementary school, but my ability in reading Spanish surnames is very limited, and I don't want to do a disservice. I just think, we should acknowledge that we've had 2 tragedies in 10 days, and it is what it is, but it's just not what it should be. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. With that thought of caring and love towards the families who are suffering right now, and remembering that our communities and our people around us are so important, let's go ahead and adjourn our meeting tonight. Thank you for being here.